faithfully conveying value and interpreting global great books. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, we're interpreting the book, The Superorganism, with the subtitle, The Beauty, Elegance, and Strangeness of Insect Societies. The authors are two sociobiologists, the German Bert Holdobler and the American Edward O. Wilson. Their research subject is social animals. So-called social animals are those that can form social groups, especially ants. These two scholars are very famous in the field of sociobiology. They once wrote a monumental work called The Ants. In our previous program, we interpreted a popular science book, Journey to the Ants, which is a simplified version of The Ants. However, these two books about ants were published in the 1990s. After nearly 2 decades of development, human understanding of social organisms has deepened. The two scholars felt it necessary to write another book about social organisms for the public. Thus, in 2008, this book, The Superorganism, was presented to everyone. This book has been highly praised as one of the most important popular science works in recent years. What makes it important? Because this book discusses topics not limited to ants. It elevates to a new concept, the superorganism. What is the superorganism? In one sentence, it's an incredibly powerful way of survival. With this concept, you gain a global perspective on the evolution of the entire biological society, including human society. By studying this survival method, you can understand what the underlying logic of distributed computing is, and also learn what self-organization is all about. Okay, let's start by understanding the organization of animals like ants, bees, and termites. Many animals tend to live in groups, which makes sense because groups provide security, facilitate foraging, reproduction, and defense against predators. In groups, they form certain structures, with each member having a specific purpose. Some handle reproduction, some foraging, with high division of labor, making the group operate efficiently. The highest level of this organization is eusociality. Is our human society considered eusocial? No, because humans can survive alone in the wild, and lions and tigers can also survive alone. But naked mole rats and Damaralan mole rats can't. In the societies of these two rodents, there's a reproductive class called the queen, and a working class whose individuality and reproductive abilities are fully suppressed. Worker ants mean working. Actually, very few species achieve full sociality. Among about 10,000 species of crustaceans, only a few pistol shrimp reach this level. Among insects, only groups like ants, termites, and bees reach this level, making up just 2% of all insect species. Although their species are few, they vastly outnumber others in population. It's estimated that eusocial insects alone may account for over half of global insect biomass. In the microworld, they firmly control the central position of the entire ecosystem. Because they rely on this unique and powerful survival strategy, the superorganism. In fact, human research on superorganisms has been going on for over a century. In 1911, the myrmecologist Wheeler summarized the characteristics of the superorganism. The entire group operates as a whole, with cycles of growth and reproduction. Within the group, different castes can be distinguished based on variations in body structure and behavior. For the average reader, this section is quite obscure. Let me give an example to make it clear. Ants form the most powerful colonies among all social insects. Ants are a superorganism. Imagine it as a single organism with different castes like worker ants as the labor class. Worker means working. They're like the somatic cells of the superorganism, unable to reproduce. Reproduction is handled by reproductive ants. So you can think of the reproductive ants as the reproductive organs of the superorganism. For the colony, the nest in the soil is its shell, protecting the group and providing a suitable internal environment. The bustling worker ants form the body of the superorganism. Each team rushing to the surface is like a tentacle. When these tentacles contact prey, they pounce on it. When facing threats, they quickly retreat the whole group, like an animal with its body hidden underground, extending tentacles to explore the world. From the ant example, you should have realized for you social animals like ants and bees, caste is one of the superorganism's most crucial features. Individuals can be seen as the cells of the superorganism, while their castes function as its organs. The reproductive caste is the reproductive organ. The worker caste are limbs, and defense castes, with alarm signals and colony recognition, form the immune system. Food distribution acts as the circulatory system. Communication between members forms the nervous system, and the nest serves as skin and bones. So we can view the entire nest as an organism. That organism is the superorganism. You might notice beehives have enormous populations but few castes. How do they achieve complex superorganism functions? The answer lies in algorithms, not a leader. There's no true commander in the group, nor any individual intelligent enough to control the nest. Whether ant queens or termite kings and queens, their only job is reproduction. They don't command other nest members. All members judge environmental changes through self-perception and decide their work based on personal state. Yet this doesn't cause chaos. They rely on instinct-based algorithms, fixed programs. Each program triggers a specific behavior. This behavior is often a binary choice, a yes or no decision, to act or not. Their simple nerves set response thresholds to stimuli, the minimum intensity required to trigger action. Just like 60 is the passing threshold for exams. Reach it and you get a passing certificate. How do such simple algorithms create collective behavior? Let me explain honeybee foraging. Then you'll understand. During a foraging mission, a scout bee discovers a large rapeseed flower field. After returning with nectar, it signals companions, "Pollen here, come quick!" Nectar source quality serves as its stimulus. The better the nectar source, the stronger its recruitment signal. At the same time, the recruitment signal he sends is also a stimulus to his companions. At this moment, the worker bee closest to the scout bee will sense the recruitment signal. If it reaches its threshold, it might go out to forage, whereas worker bees farther away receive weaker stimuli, unable to reach their threshold. It continues its original task, and obviously, there won't be just one worker bee near the scout bee. Therefore, his individual behavior leads to a certain number of worker bees going out to forage. Now pay attention, a collective behavior is triggered. If the nectar source is abundant, more bees will successfully forage and return, simultaneously sending recruitment signals. Thus, a larger scale foraging action occurs and the foraging team grows. When foraging activities wind down, the nectar source diminishes or dries up, failing to meet the threshold for bees to exhibit recruitment behavior. The recruitment signals from returning bees decrease, and thus the number of outgoing bees reduces until they stop going to this source. Foraging. See, at this point, a kind of macroscopic wisdom emerges. The swarm seems to understand the nectar source situation and will dispatch an appropriate number of worker bees. However, in fact, this is just a combination of simple computations. All bees make binary choices only on two simple events, whether to send a recruitment signal or whether to go out. In the entire event, there is no absolute commander. Even if a worker bee sends a signal, other worker bees will still decide for themselves whether to act or not. Often, stimuli even come from nature rather than companions, such as temperature, humidity, or carbon dioxide concentration in the air. This kind of social organization is called self-organization. The benefit of this organizational form is that it allows creatures with weak intelligence to create a complex society. Even if these organisms can only grasp some simple algorithms, the complexity that simple algorithms can accumulate is actually infinite. Take three binary choices as an example. Suppose there are three bees. If they make choices, there can be 2 to the power of 3, that is 8 combination patterns. As the number of binary choices increases, the possible combination patterns grow exponentially until reaching an astronomical number, and accordingly, you will observe complex behavior. And when you zoom out from individual members to the entire group, the aggregation of countless complex behaviors forms the group's survival strategy. The whole group acts intelligently, subtly adjusting its behavior to environmental changes, and it can even undergo drastic shifts. In this group, individual members act like computing units, communicating with each other through physical contact, chemical sense, visual cues, and other senses. By combining the senses and brains of group members, the group itself functions like an information processing system. The more members there are, the stronger the information processing ability, leading to higher collective intelligence. This is the root of the superorganism's power. This superorganism power has been applied by humans in computing using similar distributed computing to link multiple computers for far greater processing power than a single machine. But nature's environment is ever-changing. A bee's life isn't just about gathering honey. How can a superorganism with just a few castes handle external changes? They're clever. When needed, labor castes in the superorganism can switch their modes. For example, a worker ant digging a nest can quickly switch from builder mode to nanny mode when encountering eggs or larvae, moving them to chambers for care, or instantly shift to combat mode when facing an enemy invasion. Even soldier ants, whose main function is fighting, can take on worker tasks if many workers are lost. They might be a bit clumsy, but they manage. How did such an exquisite organizational system evolve naturally? How did the solitary ancestors of these social insects take the first step toward a supercomputing system? Let's start with the most powerful eusocial insect, ants, to unravel the mystery of social origins. Ants emerged over 100 million years ago in the Cretaceous period. Their early fossil groups retain enough wasp-like features so we can confidently say ants' ancestors were likely solitary wasps. Today, we can still see ant groups with more primitive features, like those in the subfamily Myrmicinae, which tend to hunt alone. Rather than cooperating, and their societies aren't even stable, the group size is small, and the queen's reproductive capacity is low. The distinction between male ants and the queen isn't very clear. Some male ants can even take on the queen's role after mating. At the start of nest building, Myrmicinae reproductive ants don't prepare sufficient nutrients internally and hide quietly like most ant colonies. They don't seal the cave and wait for the first workers to emerge. Myrmicinae reproductive ants lay eggs in the nest and then go out hunting. We can speculate that in earlier times, ant ancestors, like some solitary wasps today, laid eggs in nests, foraged outside, then brought back nutrients to nurture offspring. Once offspring reached adulthood, they'd leave the nest, never to reunite. But unlike early ancestors, Myrmicinae's next generation stays with their mother, assisting in nurturing the young. Staying with the mother is a crucial step toward sociality. The initial society formed is quite fragile. Environmental changes can easily break this alliance. Take halictid bees, halictid meaning tunnel, as an example. They're real modern species. When their collectible food shifts from diverse pollens to just a few types, they revert from incipient social life to solitary living. This reveals social evolution's early stage. Perhaps a key genetic change solidified socialization, the reversal of gene expression sequence. Ants possess both nurturing and foraging genes. Initially, upon adulthood, they'd first go out foraging. Later, a mutation made the nurturing gene activate before the foraging gene, meaning these mutated ants first develop the urge to nurture offspring, and only after some time do they feel the urge to forage, so they don't immediately leave the nest upon adulthood. Instead, they start caring for existing eggs in the nest. Such a mutation isn't stable because it only reverses gene activation order. Once genetically fixed, the socialization process gradually stabilizes. Even with extremely subtle physical differences, this structural differentiation alters their behavior and changes with age. For instance, young worker ants develop affection for caring for eggs in the nest, while older workers become passionate about venturing out, thus establishing division of labor. So, to what extent has the most complex superorganism evolved? On this planet, South American leafcutter ants have reached evolution's pinnacle. They possess the animal kingdom's most sophisticated communication system and intricate caste hierarchy. Their nests feature natural climate control, with microclimate regulation housing millions of individuals. They've developed remarkable symbiotic systems with fungi, while humans chose agriculture as their developmental foundation. Actually, insect superorganisms are also agricultural experts. Eurasian higher termites and South American leafcutters both farm fungi as staple food sources. Worker ants form long queues at plant bases, collecting fallen leaf fragments. Meanwhile, on plants, medium-large workers sever leaves with mandibles, creating piles that are further divided for transport. Small workers climb onto leaves, medium workers then carry them, initiating the return journey with small ants riding atop. Small workers primarily defend against aerial enemies, parasitic pharid flies. These flies deposit eggs inside ants during attacks, ultimately killing them. These forest trail-like paths are thoroughly marked by ant pheromones, eliminating navigation concerns. Large workers patrol with leather-piercing mandibles, guarding against invaders disrupting the column. Linked studies show typical leafcutter colonies maintain 4 foraging routes, each covering over 2,000 square meters. Total foraging areas astonishingly reach 1.03 hectares, larger than standard soccer fields. Upon return, leaves are transferred to smaller workers for gradual refinement. Just like a factory assembly line, leaves get increasingly refined by smaller worker ants, eventually mixed with feces to create fertile soil for growing fungi. They harvest mycelium from dense fungal areas to inoculate new substrates, while tiny workers patrol fungal gardens, monitoring conditions and removing contaminants. In fact, they've perfected fungal cultivation management. Worker ants produce antibiotics through microbes to suppress contaminant growth. Finally, mature fungi get harvested, letting the ants feast heartily. This way, they gather surface resources, transport them to the nest, and sustain their empire through agriculture. The entire colony is a precision system, a colossal superorganism. This is the magnificent evolutionary miracle forged by natural selection. Well, that's the beauty, elegance, and wonder of superorganism social insects. That concludes our interpretation. Find reading notes below the audio. See you tomorrow.